whatever point in time, where they can't any longer deny it. I don't know. But I agree with you. What's very interesting as well is I'm also getting this sort of biblical references from the guardians. I have not had any religious training, let's say, in this lifetime, right? So, when they're saying a term like Gog and Magog, I'm like, what is that? What are you guys talking about? What's Gog and Magog? And they've been talking about that for like the last 30 days now. About the lineages of Gog and Magog and the prophecies that have to do with these Armageddon timelines and how these are like, in their context, they're like programs like a video game. It's like as if we were going into the archive of our hologram. If we actually could compare this to a video game and we're looking on the shelf, we could see the game Armageddon, right? And the issue is right now, do we want to play that game? Do we want to play the game of pestilence? Do we want to play the game of cataclysm? Do we want to, continue with the Gog-Magog lineage? And so it's been interesting seeing their perspective with that because they're using those biblical revelation terms, which are actually unfamiliar to me as Lisa.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that training. I'm like, what are you talking about? What is this,
Yeah. I've done a lot of research into all the different prophecies, and a lot of the Native American prophecies seem to be unfolding, and they correspond with the star nations, and they have been talking about the beast and the fall of the beast and how it consumes itself eventually. They also talk about two worlds, which I find really interesting, and I never really had the physics background to understand it. Now I do, but how there could be actually two different worlds or two different timelines and a downward spiral in evolution where one group chooses that path into technology and overpowering others and service to self and all that nonsense. They end up actually taking the downward spiral and collapsing and ending, and the other world takes the upward spiral of evolution into brother-sisterly love and individual freedom and prosperity for all, and they take this align with nature and take the upward spiral. And I do see that happening, and the possibility of two worlds actually existing side by side where one group goes one way and one group goes the other way. And we're seeing that in our self-mastery classes and in the Kunlun classes. We're actually having people, and myself too, it happens to me actually disappear and move from one world to the other world and then back again, and they're going back and forth. And I think with some people, if they really do their homework and keep working in this direction, because this is where the whole planet is going, we will end up just stepping out of one world into another, and it isn't the possibility, or to me, an extreme probability that that's kind of where we're going to go.
That seems to be very relevant to my experience as well, and especially amplified in the last couple of weeks as a reminder, where I'm also seeing, for a while they had talked about reality bubbles and descending matrices and ascending matrices. And what they meant by that is that there were going to be, in this transitory phase we're in, there was going to be parts of the planet, like say you're in a certain, area of the planet, and that it would have a lower vibration, and the beings that were really promoting or still existing in negativity would be attracted there, and it would be much more unstable in those little pockets. And then the ascending pockets would also be around, which would be completely vibrationally different, where it would be much more peaceful, much more easy vibrationally, much more economically stable. So they were literally describing like hubs, like there would be safe zones and hubs where higher frequency would be contained in a reality bubble within that certain demographic of the planet. And then there were other parts that were descending and would become very hellish, like pockets of low astral, just, a place you don't want to be. And I've already had that experience at times. I don't know if you have, where you walk in to a descending hub or a descending matrix and you go, oh my God. And what you'll notice there too is the people that are existing in those spaces, they're like automatons. They have basically no critical thinking or problem-solving ability. If you interact with a lot of people, it's like they're on autopilot or something. They're basically functioning at yes, no, and that's about it. It's very surreal. When you see a human being with no light in their eyes, admittedly, it's very eerie.
Yeah, and you say something to them that should be of shock value or something, and they just get this blank stare over their eyes like a deer in the headlights, and they just dismiss it and move on to something else, and you go, whoa, what is going on here?
What's going on? Yes, I know. Yeah, it's kind of disturbing. I just had I call them case studies. It was like I had an experience of this recently, and it was very surreal. I was like, my jaw was just kind of, dropped, going, wow, okay, get used to this, because it's really interesting too. Like I noticed that if because I'm not in those environments often at all. I think it was for learning purposes, because that's usually what happens. I get a reality check, because I get to speak this and live this multidimensional bubble all the time. Yeah. So sometimes I forget what the masses are doing. Yeah, I know. And you go into the third dimensional land, and then you deal with and interact at that level, and you go, oh my God, that's the reality check.
Yeah, you go, people really do think like this. I thought that went out in the dark ages. It's quite a shock.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
it's kind of like somebody
we're
saying,
running out of time.
Okay.
Lisa, we're about out of time here. I want to get you back on the show again. We have so much more to cover. But we're running out of time. But I want you to give any contact information and your website to people before we sign off.
Sure, absolutely. Well, certainly I have a ton of content and information about the Ascension that is at energeticsynthesis.com. And I'm also stewarding and supporting an internet community which basically has all of the archives and meditation tools. When we were talking about clearing mental body or removing fear programs, that's really a part of my service work, is supplying some tools within that level. So if that is feeling resonant for you, you might want to check out the community on Energetic Synthesis.
Great. Awesome. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I wish I had a 2-hour show, because I know we could go on for probably 10 hours. But unfortunately, I only have an hour show. And
it was great, James. Thank you.
All right. We'll stay in touch. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Many blessings, and thank you for all you do. I really appreciate it.
All right. You too. Well, this is James Gilliland signing off for As You Wish Talk Radio, and here at the East Eddy Ranch. So keep watching the skies, follow your hearts, and just be kind to each other for a little while. See what happens. Have a great evening. Good night.